Hello everyone and welcome to the Arlington ISD District Update for Friday, October 23rd, 2020. I'm Anita Foster and today we're going to talk about the latest with the COVID-19 plan, give you an update on enrollment, introduce a new teacher survey. We've got an election coming up, so we're going to talk about a voter approval tax rate election, and then we're going to end with some stories sure to warm your heart. Joining me today, as always, Dr. Marcelo Cavazos, Superintendent of Schools. Greetings, Dr. Cavazos.
Hello, Anita. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. It's
Absolutely.
really been a roller coaster ride when we talk about COVID. It's hard to believe we are in our 7th month of dealing with this pandemic. Where are we currently with district plans?
So, Anita, we're teaching and learning every day. About half of our students are virtual and half of our students are coming face-to-face for instruction. Elementary and junior high began their face-to-face for anybody who wants to come. That's already started. High schools remain in hybrid, and that's our current kind of situation. Every day, the teaching and learning.
Now, we went back to in-person instruction on September the 28th. Have you seen an uptick in cases from either staff or students since we started back?
Yeah, Anita, so we have seen cases since we started back. Our task really is to minimize the spread. We knew that starting back, just like other things that have opened, will have spread. And so we want to minimize that, implement our protocols with fidelity, make sure that we are doing the social distance, the wearing of masks and things like that. But we have seen cases in our schools and some of our departments.
Have there been any trouble spots that you've observed?
Yeah, so there have been trouble spots in our district, Anita. So we've had in transportation, for example, 30 employees who've had to get quarantined, and it affected office staff there, for example. We've had classrooms that we've had to quarantine and ask them to stay home with the teacher as well. We've had an entire grade level in some cases that's had to be quarantined. So these incidences do occur. And I think what's important today is to acknowledge the fact that we have to be prepared to make some interventions that include sending individuals to quarantine at different times based on the situation, and to minimize the spread. That's our task in the schools in terms of our protocols.
And you said all along that the goal was not to stop the virus at the door. We don't really have the ability to do that. But talk about the contact tracing. You say that's what matters.
Yeah, so our staff has done an exceptional job, led by our school nurses, to have contact tracing teams in the building, that when there is a case, that we're able to notify efficiently and effectively the individuals who are close contacts, the individuals who need to be quarantined, specifically with how long they need to be quarantined. And we rely on them because they're the ones who are able to provide that information so that individuals who need to be quarantined are quarantined to minimize that spread in the building. So I want to thank our nurses and staff for doing that.
Now, we've got on each campus website a dashboard, a COVID-19 dashboard. And you talked about this a little bit, but let's dig in deeper. What happens if you're a close contact versus a possible exposure contact?
Yeah, so there's really two categories, Anita. So when there is a case at a school or a department, but we'll just talk about a school, you can sometimes expect that there will be a close contact. So anyone who's had contact, and there's a definition of that, has contact with somebody who's positive, they receive notification when they need to be quarantined. So we do that. The district will provide the notification, whether that's for a student or a staff member, and it's very specific with how much time, exact date of when you can return to school. And so that's a close contact. Then we have another category of potential exposure or possible exposure. And that simply is to notify individuals that we have a case at a school or a department. And we post those notifications on our website. Our every campus website has that information. So if there's a case at a school, potential exposure notification is posted on the website. If you are a close contact at that school with the case, then you will receive direct notification from us that's very explicit as to what and the time frame that you need to quarantine. Again, those are measures that are really important because that's how you minimize the spread, make sure everyone continues to be safe, and reach that ultimate goal, which is to sustain the opening of our schools. And I think that sometimes gets lost, that some of the the things we're trying to accomplish is to maintain schools open so that we can continue the teaching and learning process.
There's another dashboard that many of our staff and parents follow, and that's the Tarrant County Public Health Dashboard designed specifically for schools. It's currently red, and I know you know this. Red, by definition from Tarrant County Public Health, is a recommendation that public schools should consider virtual instruction. Are there plans right now to return the Arlington ISD to virtual?
So Anita, at this time, we're not considering a return to exclusively virtual instruction. We know we have protocols and safety measures in place at every school and every department. We also recognize that the dashboard is red, and it has been persistently red. The numbers have not really improved. And so what we're left with today is to make sure we're prepared as a school district, and we are, to have intervention when there is a situation at a school or department. So that contact tracing, that notification, that quarantine, that we follow our strict protocols, that those things are put in place so that we respond appropriately if there's an issue at a school. We can talk about the different regulations from Texas Education Agency, Attorney General opinion, et cetera. But at the end of the day, what we're left with is when there's an issue at a school, we're prepared to respond effectively and efficiently. And quite frankly, some of that response, we haven't experienced this yet, but some of that response at a school level may be to close the school for a period of time. Not an entire semester and things like that, but 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days, maybe longer, so that we can make sure that the contact tracing was done with fidelity. And again, that's not a judgment or a critique at all. It's just when there are cases, and there's significant cases, you have to pause to make sure that everyone has received their notification, and that pausing may include a school closure for a period of time. So those are the things that we're really dealing with today. As we mentioned earlier, we have had cases, we have had situations where we notify individuals in different schools, but it's been where we can continue the operation of the school. If there's a situation where that can happen, then we would have to close it for a short period of time until that can be accomplished.
So let's turn our attention to another area of concern for many of our staff members, and that's enrollment. How is the Arlington ISD stacking up against other districts here in Texas, and even some conversations you've had with districts across the nation?
That's correct, Anita. So enrollment is a big concern across the nation, across Texas, and certainly in Arlington as well. So every year we set an enrollment projection or target, and that's how we build our budget. And so we set that the year before. So today's enrollment is about 3.4% below projection. And that really translates to a couple of thousand students that have not enrolled, and we're seeing that as a gap. And so we know that when the state funding system is tied to enrollment, then it has financial impacts for the district. But we also know that the state recognizes, because it's a phenomenon that's occurring across the state, that enrollment is going to be an issue during this pandemic. And so we're actually at the low end of that gap. Big districts in Texas like us are trending 9%, 8%, 10% gap between projection and enrollment. We're at about 3.4%. And so the implications for that are funding at some point. Now, the state has provided this first semester as a hold harmless, which means your funding is not affected by your enrollment for at least this first semester. So that's positive, positive move from the state. We would certainly advocate for it to be the entire year, because this pandemic is not a semester at a time, it really is an entire year. But we have a semester of hold harmless or stabilization, if you will. If enrollment gaps or drop persist over a period of time, then it does have major implications for funding, which will then have implications for what we can and can't accomplish in the district and our budget.
So in case you haven't heard, it is an election year. November 3rd is Election Day, and the Arlington ISD has an item on the agenda, Proposition A. We've called for a voter approval tax rate election. Remind us what that is and how it would impact the Arlington ISD.
So that's right, Anita. VATRE allows the district to raise the tax rate with voter approval to generate more funding for maintenance and operation. And we know that funding will go towards teacher salaries, staff salaries, so that we remain competitive in the Metroplex with our compensation. So it's a way to raise more revenue. It's a way to access more state funding as a result of that. About $18 million more from the state by raising the tax rate. Our tax rate has been stable or declining over the past 15 years. And this is the avenue to generate more funding in the state school finance system.
And some might ask, why this year? It doesn't really seem like a great year to put a tax increase on the ballot. Why this year?
Yeah, so I get that question often. And the district has, like I said, had 15 years of stable or declining tax rate. So we have waited, we've been efficient, we have made the reductions over the years. We've had a citizens committee that have examined the budget and made recommendations, and we're at that point. And so VATRE can be called only in November. It can be only a November election. We couldn't call one last year because it wasn't allowed after HB3 passed. And so here's where we are today. And that would again keep the Arlington ISD competitive with compensation among the districts in the Metroplex, which is something that is important as we retain and attract staff and teachers.
Absolutely. Now, we've talked a lot about teachers today, and there's no question they are pulling more than their fair share. Teaching remote students, teaching in-person students, it's been a lot. They've done amazing, but you want to hear from them, good or bad, with a new teacher survey that'll be coming out. Tell us a little bit about the survey and how you think it will impact the next steps for the district.
Our teachers have done an exceptional job in working through the teaching and learning that is occurring today. Nobody went to school to be exclusively an online instructor, certainly not to be an online instructor and a face-to-face instructor at the same time. That's what our teachers are doing today. But they're doing an exceptional job. I was able to visit Farrell Elementary, third grade teacher today, and was so impressed because the entire class was on Zoom, the students face-to-face were on Zoom, and the students at home were at Zoom. And they were both being supported by the exceptional teacher there at Farrell, Shanda. And I want to thank her because she's a model for so many teachers. She represents what's happening today in the classrooms. And the students were so engaged and they so love their teacher. And we know that that's fundamental in this teaching and learning process, it's a relationship. And she was able to interact with both groups. I was able to interact with both groups at the same time. Just an exceptional job. So I'm so proud of our teachers and so proud of their work. The survey will make sure that we continue to get feedback as to what ways we can support them. We ask them often, we're asking again, you know, this virtual experience, this online experience, this face-to-face, this combination, what support do they continue to need so that we can, you know, move our resources or redirect resources to make sure we're supporting them in this very important function that they're doing today.
Expect the survey, I think maybe within a week or so.
That's correct.
So teachers can expect to receive that, and you really, truly want their feedback.
Absolutely want their feedback, and understanding that they've been giving feedback throughout this entire process. We have many ways of doing that. This is one more step in that, and it's a journey, and I've said that often. This is a journey we're on, and it'll continue to inform our work, and then we'll adapt again as the situation continues to change.
Well, very good, Dr. Cavazos. We've talked about some challenging topics today, so let's turn our attention to some spotlight stories that are a little bit more heartwarming. We've got some special thanks today for GM Financial.
Yeah, so GM Financial stepped up here in Arlington, and they provided 50,000 masks. They delivered them, they provided them, they funded it all for our students and our staff. And that's just a great effort from GM Financial here locally. And we thank them sincerely.
Absolutely. And then we have some high fives for Kroger, I understand?
That's right. Kroger donated 6,000 boxes of supplies for our students. And that's another local partner that has stepped up for Arlington and our students. And so they provided those supplies. We know supplies are important, so thank you to Kroger as well.
Well, I know you're a Cowboys fan, and like many Cowboys fans, Monday Night Football might not have been the best night, but halftime was on fire.
Halftime was great, that's right, because Dallas Cowboys defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence had a halftime chat with our own Javion Carr during the Next Generation segment at halftime. We're so proud of Javion and all the athletes who work hard to achieve their dreams every day at school. And thank you to the Dallas Cowboys.
And that's a great note to end this week's district update on. Dr. Cavazos, thank you so much for freely sharing information and for helping to lead our district through these tough times.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you to all our staff, our teachers, our community, our students. Thank you sincerely for your patience and for your determination during these times.
To stay up to date on everything going on in the Arlington ISD, just visit our website at AISD.net or follow us on social media at Arlington ISD. Thanks for joining us, and stay safe and well.